So my name is John Gluck. I'm a senior editor at Fast Company, and thank you all for being here today. I want to introduce our guest this afternoon by reading a short bio she wrote for her new book, because it not only captures who she is as a professional, but gives you a little taste of her personality. So I'm going to read from your bio. Brené Brown is a research professor at the University of Houston, where she holds the Huffington Foundation Endowed Chair as the Graduate College of Social Work. She also holds the position of Professor of Practice and Management at the University of Texas at Austin McCombs School of Business. She's the author of six, number one, New York Times bestsellers.
Let's go.
And the host of 2 award-winning podcasts. In 2024, she was named as the executive director of the Center for Daring Leadership at Better Up. She lives in Houston, Texas, with her husband, Steve. They have 2 children, Ellen and Charlie, and a weird Bichon Frise named Lucy. Brené, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
So let's get right to it. Over the course of your career, you've studied human emotions like shame, vulnerability, and courage, and how they affect both individuals and organizations. Your new book is called Strong Ground. Tell us what that term means and how it applies to business and leadership.
So really quick story about the title, and you'll have to, I don't know what the questions are. I never read the questions beforehand, because if I'm watching an interview where that's happened, I'm like, next. So I'm nervous a little bit, because you look really serious. So
I thought we were best friends backstage. What happened?
Yeah, that shit's over. Yeah, because now I'm in the hot seat.
Do you want me to vamp a little? Just wink when you're ready?
Yes,
okay.
Actually. Shoot, what was the question? Oh, Strong Ground. Okay. So very quick story. I like it or hate it. If you hate it, I don't care. I'm a big pickleball player. Yeah, so it took me, I was a very serious tennis player for a long time, and it took me, people would say, you want to play pickleball? I'm like, no. And then it took me 2 years to try it in 20 minutes to start playing 6 days a week. I'm super serious. But I got really hurt, along with everybody else over 50 playing pickleball. It's an excellent time to be an orthopedic surgeon. And because, I'm an ex-athlete. I was an athlete growing up. I was a swimmer and a tennis player. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm back. And I'm really competitive. And I got hurt. And when I went to my trainer after I could walk after 3 weeks, he said, let's do a test. And I said, okay. So I did the test. And he said, you scored a 10. And I said, oh, hell yeah, let's move some heavy shit, let's go. And he said, out of 22. You have no core at all, none. I was just like, you have no core and you have compensatory injuries. You're using inefficient muscle groups that were not meant to do the work that they're doing to compensate for large muscle groups that are supposed to be doing that work that you don't have. And it's like, wait, what do you mean? And he's like, you have no core, no glutes, no ab, no lats, nothing. I'm surprised you're standing. So when we started talking about it, it was really interesting because I had to fill out this assessment about what I wanted. And I was like, I want more agility, more speed, more strength. I want to be able to pivot quickly. And he gave me this lecture about we're not going to just jump in here and it's not going to be intensity. It's going to be consistency, small movements, and we're not going to build on dysfunction. And at the time, I was using an iPad and some productivity app, because instead of doing stuff, I just watch YouTube tutorials on productivity apps. And I bought one where you could make bubble letters and calligraphy. And when I did a search for some notes from some CEOs that I'm coaching and working with right now, what came up were my notes from the gym. Mobility, stability, strength, don't build on dysfunction. And the only way I found my lats after literally I couldn't find them. I would do what is it called?
Lat pulls.
Yeah, lat pull. And he's like, you're using your shoulders and your arms. I'm like, maybe they're missing. And he's like, they are missing, but you have them. But one day, he kind of taught me what it meant to be in an athletic stance, like to really find the ground. And the only way I was able to move through that training and get stronger was every time I'd do something, I'd say to myself, strong ground, strong ground. And then I found myself saying the same thing when I was in a really hard conversation with a C-suite about, supply chain and tariffs, or I had to have a hard conversation with a direct report. And then what I realized is, in this tempest shit show that we're living in right now, I think we're using inefficient muscle groups. We're not tethered to the ground, and we're getting hurt. And I think we need to find our strong ground individually, collectively, and organizationally. So it's a long answer, but I'm full of them. Long-winded.
Awesome. Just getting started on the long answers. So picking up on this idea of not building on dysfunction, obviously that implies that we all do well as individuals and organizations to adapt and transform ourselves as needed. Early in the book, you write, there is no app for transformation. Transformation is a major theme throughout all of your work, this book and others. Why is that so important, and how should and shouldn't people approach change and transformation?
I think the work that we do in organizations is primarily deep transformation work. And raise your hand if you're burnt out on the word transformation. Right. And I think the reason we have transformation weariness is because we call all change transformation, because adaptive change is not that sexy, and you're not going to inspire a large organization of people like, hey, everyone, pull together, it's incremental change time. But when you call something that is not a transformation, I think you lose trust and confidence. A real transformation, first and foremost, I think the hardest thing about a real transformation is you're going to need to break some shit. And you're going to need a very serious assessment of what is working in your organization, the systems, the processes, the people, what's not, what's fueling growth, what's driving impact, what's driving revenue, what's not. And what you have to put on the chopping block with transformation is some of your darlings. And there's always a time in the transformations that I lead where a CEO or someone in the C-suite will look at me and say, Jesus, we're breaking shit that we're not even really allowed to talk about. And so all of transformation is built on paradox, which is you must viciously protect what is serving while breaking what is not. And when you break in a transformation, the things are not working, you need to be very careful about the human response. It's just neurobiology of replacing the systems you're breaking with brand new systems that are impenetrable and don't serve impact. We'd rather have shitty systems than uncertainty. And so transformation is a very difficult thing. And the hard news is, if I look back, we've had a lot of very successful transformations, and people always think we measure that by cultural metrics, and we certainly care because people are the foundation of transformation. People who are seen, respected, and heard are unstoppable. But really, we measure transformation in our work on performance. And I don't know, cultural metrics are hard, but at the end of a transformation, if performance is where we want it to be, and the people with the least power, formal power in an organization, feel seen and respected, we've won. But the idea that you have to do one at the cost of the other, that you can either be wholehearted in your leadership or perform, to me, is just indicative of a lack of skill.
You teed me up so perfectly for the next question, it's crazy.
Great, I love it.
Okay, you talk about the continued reliance in some organizations on old-fashioned, both in the book and here today, on old-fashioned fear-based management, not making people feel seen, heard. the like, versus modern support-based management. We all know there's been something of a backlash to that newer idea in recent years. Why is it so important, and why should organizations continue to go in that direction?
I think I'm not trying to be careful, I'm trying to be thoughtful and honest. The majority of us get up in the morning and reluctantly grab our phones and turn them on to see what's happening in the world as a result of fear and scarcity-based leadership. And the thing about leading with fear that's so toxic and so dangerous is that fear has a very short shelf life. We're not really wired for it. We can, fear is inherently not a bad thing. Like, if a bear comes charging in here right now, like I'm throwing the small people and running. That's a good instinct, right? Like,
you don't have to be faster than the bear, just faster than the friend,
have to be,
right?
I just have to be faster than like
all of us. Yeah.
70% of you. No, 30% of you. I'm eating, 30%. Like the rest, I'm out. The thing about fear and power over leadership, as opposed to power with and power to, is because of the short shelf life that we cannot maintain, we can't stay afraid of you for a long time. Neurobiologically, we can't. So in order to maintain fear-based leadership, you have to, on a fairly regular basis, demonstrate a fairly deep capacity for cruelty to maintain fear-based leadership. That's the only way it works. And at some point, it stops working. Now, there are a lot of vulnerable populations who have been desperately hurt by that point, but the thing to understand within organizations, if you want to pull back from kind of the larger, I wouldn't call what's happening in leadership, I would call it kind of a power structure. In an organization, there is no question that Welchian, rank and yank, fear-based, shame and blame leadership is super effective for 5 minutes. And what will happen is you will yield one or two single performers who will bring in a lot of money and have a lot of impact. What we know from the data is that if you get rid of these two folks who are perpetuating that kind of leadership, that the people surrounding them who are performing maybe at a 6 or a 7 will rise to a 9 or 10, then you're missing 2 assholes and you've got 30 people performing at a 9 or a 10. Your choice, you do the math. Like, it's just that straightforward. The problem is that the ability to understand that and recognize that and then attend to it in a way that's respectful and productive, even with the assholes, is skill sets that we don't have. Because starting in the 80s with that Welchian approach to leadership, and this is what worries me about AI, we were basically taught that everything that makes us human makes us a liability at work, makes us a liability to performance and impact and growth. And it's just not true. Now, what you're hearing are platitudes like, don't worry about AI. What makes us human makes us irreplaceable. We are shit at being human. How many of you, by and large, love the idea of humanity, but really don't care for people? I mean, honestly, yes or no? I'm not the only one, I don't believe you. How many of y'all are liars? Like, yeah, okay. So people are hard right now. So I think there are some things that are uniquely human, and I love AI. I use it all the time with optimism and extreme caution. But the things that are really human about us, courage, context, anticipatory awareness, situational awareness, temporal awareness, passionate pursuit of mastery, those are joyful things that we have not been skilled to do. And that's where the investment is. This is why you're seeing right now in a lot of research that's coming out that 90% of the AI investments across organizations demonstrating failure. Not aligning that investment in AI appropriately with business strategy, because you're just, the conversations are like, get an AI strategy by tomorrow.
Yesterday.
Okay, what do we want to do? I don't give a shit, just have a strategy. Jill has a strategy. Juan has a strategy. Where's our strategy? And so we just need to settle the ball. Like 5-year-olds, this is the analogy I always use. 5-year-olds, how many of you ever seen a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old play soccer? Right? It's so fun. They're on the pitch. The ball comes into them at head height. They put their foot head height and kick the ball onto 3 fields over where it hits a kid who's making a daisy chain, sitting crisscross applesauce. But then you get into middle school and high school, and I'm a big Premier League soccer fan, so I watch them take the ball, a high ball into the chest, right? Settle the ball. Get on the ball, look down the pitch strategically, take a breath, pass the ball. We need to settle the ball. We're going too fast. We're just kicking up here because we're scared.
Let's keep talking about sports.
Yeah.
You're an athlete and a sports fan, and at one point you make a connection between the Philadelphia Eagles tush-push play, in which basically half the team shoves the quarterback into the end zone, and organizational success. What's the connection?
Man, if you hate sports metaphors, you're gonna frickin' hate this book. Yeah. I have to have an apology chapter up front explaining why there's so many sports analogies in the book. The tush push, I think, first of all, go Birds. I could piss all of you off in 2 minutes. I'll start with go Birds. I'll go hook 'em horns, and I'll end up with a rendition of You'll Never Walk Alone. I'm in love with all the teams that are, people are like, you love me or you hate me. But the tush push is it's about physics. And so what I'm trying to talk about is the Newtonian physics of the tush push. That the tush push works from a physics perspective because of three laws of physics. One, the offense has a split-second time advantage. So pushing against time advantage, you're already at a real disadvantage. Two, what's interesting is ground force reaction. When you're in the ground and you're pushing, the ground force of your push is like your weight times 10 because you're in the ground. Imagine instead of a field, if that ground was your personal values, your deep understanding of organizational mission, and you're grounded in that. And what's interesting is they'll always have a player on the defense, the Eagles who will come off the ground and try to go over the scrum. But the minute you lose touch with the ground, your ground force is your weight only. It's not your weight times what you're getting. I mean, if you ever have seen the turf repair after that play, they're kicking up dirt like crazy. And so my whole thing is about Newtonian teamwork. And I work with a lot of sports teams. You have to be deeply grounded in your values, and you need to be surrounded by a team deeply grounded in their values and the values of the company, and understand that 1 yard you're pushing toward. And the minute any of us become untethered, the whole team suffers. That's my sports metaphor.
Love it.
I love it. Again, did I mention Go Birds? Yeah.
Let's go back to... Wow.
I love y'all. I mean, let's shit talk. Let's go.
Yeah. They're consistent in their reaction.
They are. I like it.
And you asked for it.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I got an argument at the hotel last night because I had a Liverpool baseball cap on when I came in from my flight, and the guy goes, "Nice to see you again, doctor." What? Yeah. Why? I'm an Arsenal fan.
Well, that takes courage to be an Eagles fan and a room full of New Yorkers. So let's talk about courage.
Yeah.
Some years
And
ago,
your segues are on point, dude. I like them.
I told you we're like best friends in 10 seconds. I don't know what happened. Some years ago in your early work, you surveyed a large group of CEOs and asked them what most needed to change about the way people lead. And the most common responses were that we need braver leaders and more courageous cultures. Much of your work since then is focused on those ideas. Why are they so important?
Yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I've been a qualitative researcher for, oh my God, is that true? I'm still doing the math. Yeah, 30 years. It was the first time I'd ever done a qualitative study where we asked such a diverse group of CEOs and leaders who all had very strong reputations for being both completely dedicated to performance and culture and not buying into the false binary of those things. And I'm talking about like oil and gas CEO in Singapore and Ed Catmull, who was running Pixar at the time, like an NGO in Canada and somebody else in Africa. And the thing about qualitative research is you're pattern finding. And it was so shocking to me that across this diverse sample of leaders, everyone said the same thing. I mean, I had a whole team of doctoral students that were like, this can't be true. But across the board, it was the future of leadership belongs to the brave, more courage. And that was 15 years ago. And so what's scary with grounded theory research is a grounded theory is only as good as its ability to work new data. So in the last, maybe 6 years, we've taken 160,000 leaders across 45 countries through Dare to Lead, which is a courage-building transformation program. The 4 skill sets of courage still hold, and the need for more courage is absolutely still there. What I think is interesting, and I'll draw a quick analogy, what I think is interesting is while the 4 skill sets of courage still the same, still teachable, observable, and measurable, what's changed is the order in which we teach them, and the presenting problems now are different while the solution has remained courage. So this is a really interesting analogy. I was talking to a CEO, Fortune 25 company, about 3 weeks ago, and this CEO said, given the complexity that we're up against, especially because we're global, we have a big vertical that's manufacturing, localizing supply chains due to tariff issues, I thought it would be a good idea based on some consultants that we were working with. I was like, flag 1. Caution, the quarter zips are here. I'm like, I get it, but like, I'm worried. Because behind the recommendation is going to become a 200 slide deck and a big fat invoice, and it's just like, but I got the recommendation to change some of our values, 2 of our values. And immediately I was like, oh shit. And I said, walk me through that decision making, and we were talking about it. And the thing is that, like, I studied the values of this company in graduate school. You cannot separate this company, this organization, from their values. One of the things that was surprising, I just today, just to let you know, I'm gonna like push it out. Adam Grant and I are just launched today, a 6-part podcast series on the new book. Yeah, it's really fun. Wherever you download your podcast. But one of the things that we were talking about is we have like 1,000 debates and fights in this thing. We're like brother and sister, and I'm Candace and he's Phineas or Ferb on the day. But I told him that when I go into organizations, I have found that fewer than 10% of organizations that I've been in have operationalized their values into observable, measurable behaviors. And he's like, that's not true. There's no way it's 10%. It's 2 max. So when we go back to the CEO who's wondering about changing their values, it is time to re-examine the values in terms of how we operationalize them. For example, if you've got integrity as a value, you probably still want to have integrity as a value, but to operationalize that now, you better be talking about data governance, data privacy. Updating the value doesn't mean changing the value. So updating courage doesn't mean, luckily, because sometimes the data will dictate it does, but we don't have to change the 4 skill sets, which are being very clear on your 1 or 2 core values, operationalizing them, recognizing when you're in them and out of them, learning how to rumble with vulnerability. Who are you in uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure? Like when you feel uncertain and at risk and exposed, where are you on the asshole scale? Because unless you're really good at vulnerability, you're probably somewhere on either the asshole scale or the we can't find her, she's hiding scale. 3 is trust building and not sly and kind of like, I need to build more trust. I need to have a conversation about trust, using the word trust, being explicit that that's what we're doing. And 4, resetting after failure, disappointment, and setback. We're going to be failing a ton moving forward because we should be learning and trying new things. So those skill sets have stayed the same. We're re-operationalizing them based on some new issues that are coming up because of changing markets, geopolitics, the issues, and AI, to be honest with you.
We have time for 1 more, maybe 2 more questions. In addition to your other skills, I think it's fair to say you have a knack for inspiring people. Many people in this room are leaders of organizations, large, medium, and small. How do you do that? What's the secret to inspiring people?
I think I'm probably inspire strangers more than I inspire my team.
Say more.
I don't know about inspire. I don't know that I wrestle with that word because I don't really care if I'm inspirational or not.
How do you get people to listen to you? Because people listen to you.
Oh, people, yeah. I don't know that people listen to me either. I mean, I've got a 20-year-old and a 26-year-old.
I told you I have 2 more questions. You want to skip to the last one?
No, I think it's an important question. I think there's 2 things that are important to me. One is, and this is about respect for other people and self-respect, I'm never not going to be prepared. I'm just never not going to be prepared. So if people are listening to me in a meeting, the other day a young woman came up to me, we were the only women in a meeting, and I write about it in the book, and it's where I do this takedown of the term executive presence. Like, yeah, Adam Grant said, take it down. It's cover for, shitting on introverts and women. And I think I don't know what executive presence means. Like, oh, I don't know what that means. But in the break, the other woman came up to me, and she was young, and she said, you have so much executive presence. How do you get people, how do you do that? And I was like, I was flagged. I said, I don't know what that means, but let me ask you a question. How did you prep for this meeting? No, I said, why do you think I have executive presence? She's like, because you're pausing us, you're challenging, but in a productive way with hard questions. You know a lot about the company we're talking about. And I said, how did you prepare? And how long did it take? And she said, I did this and this. It took me about 30 minutes. I said, it took me about 4 hours. I said, the company we're discussing today, I've listened to 3 investor calls. I understood about 50% of the shit they were saying. I had to Google all that. I've watched video footage of the CEO. I've read. I was like, don't confuse presence with preparedness. So one, I think I try to be prepared. And that may be overfunctioning from being the only woman in a lot of rooms in my career. And then 2, I try to not give a shit whether you like me or not. So I'm honest. I try to just be very truthful. And I think if people listen to what I say, maybe it's because they trust that I'm going to tell the truth. And if I can't, I don't talk, which is why I went away for like a year last year, because I was like, the consequence of telling the truth right now is super hard. And so I needed to like protect my peace and my own stuff. And in terms of inspiration, I think about James March at Stanford, who his book called On Leadership, I wouldn't say I've read it. I've tried to read it. I'm still reading it. It's super important. But it's like his lectures translated into French and then deconstructed. Oh, bullshit, I don't know, but it's hard, but it's smart. But his quote I love, he says, leadership is plumbing and poetry. A good leader can cast a vision that's so poetic that people want to follow it, but also have such a commitment to organizational excellence that they can build the systems and the plumbing that deliver on that poetry. And to me, I think that makes sense. I think good leadership is poetry and plumbing. But I also think if you talk to my team, the number one thing that I have talked about in the book, I was shocked, because there's 30 skill sets that I identified that I think we're going to need moving forward. But don't worry, because using my gym analogy, there's some kettlebell exercises that'll hit like 10 of them at a time. The number one thing I think we need moving forward, and again, I spend a lot of time in C-suites and with senior leaders, self-awareness. You gotta know who you are, why you're showing up like a maniac when you're showing up like a maniac, why you can't have a good discussion with some people and other people it's easier. You gotta know that about yourself. And I have a coach, a mentor, and a therapist. And I just wanna acknowledge I have the financial ability to do that. But I will tell you, if you're running an organization and you're in here and you have control over budget, leaders are high-performing people. If you want high-performing, high-impact people, you should be paying for a coach for them. Because how many of you would put money on a game where the team had no coach? Leaders are the only high-performing people in the world that do not have coaches out of just core expectation. So I think that helps me, because if I have to have a hard conversation with you, and I have about 20 a week, there probably hasn't been, 50% of those over the last 5 years, I've role-played with a coach before I had it. And she will say, you're not ready, you're under the line, you sound like a victim, you're in your no one gets it, and I wish I could just hire 20 of me phase. You're self-protecting, it's not productive, and it's not who you want to be. So inspiration is, I think in this world right now, a little bit of a dangerous word. At core, it's important. You know, it's from the Latin in spiritus, and I think it means to be in spirit with. And I want to be in spirit and in community with y'all. But I don't want to do what we're talking about today as inspiring, because it means that I have something y'all don't have. And like, I'm just like you. Like 3 days out of 7, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't want to get out of bed. Like, this has gotten too crazy in the world. I just want to take my kids and I'm going to Lisbon. You know, like, and so I don't have anything special.
Well, we think you have something special, and we're extremely grateful you were here, and thank you so much, Brené Brown.
Thanks, y'all. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks, y'all.